Welcome to what could be an introduction to a Let's Play series or just another one-off in my primary channel. Before watching the video, a reminder to check out both my alternate channel and Micah's Discord server. Feel free to carry on with the discussion, for only comments promoting blasphemy against the Lord will be taken down. Another disclaimer is this: I'm not a lore master of the Elder Scrolls, and will focus more on the establishment of a story congruent with the mechanics of Elder Kings 2 than anything else. The world of Tamriel is a vast and diverse place, filled with peoples whose cultures are absolutely immaculate. From the damp swamps of Argonia to the shimmering deserts of Hammerfell, all peoples have a unique worldview and reason for being. However, out of each culture there is one that dares to transcend beyond the mortal coil, that of Alinor. Born in the worship of their literal ancestors, those of Alinor have a unique devotion to the ideals of transcendence beyond the mortal realm. While other cultures, such as the Dunmer, Nords, and Redguards, may see the mortal realm as an ideal, the Altmer have a unique desire to push for transcendence, not just mere physical power, but a means to escape the brutal cycle of Anu and Padome, of Auriel the Creator, Akatosh the Sustainer, and Alduin the Destroyer. The year now is 240 of the Second Era, and the continent of Tamriel is divided. Cyrodiil is in a civil war between the remnants of the vile Akaviri potentate and the righteous champions of Colovia. Skyrim too faces conflict between the staunch traditionalists of the East and the more reform-minded peoples of the West. Even in Valenwood, a nation that is meant to be sovereign and peaceful, its natives suffer the disgusting march of Cyrodiilic invasions, imposing their disgusting barbarity in the name of their false gods. Far from the homogeneous Argonian race, the torrid swamp of Black Marsh is divided between their commanders. Returning to the lands of the civilized Altmer people, peace and order remains dominant. Here one can expect and predict everything as long as he doesn't leave the vast towers, as the elven peoples remain blind to their own vulnerability. Concepts such as adventure remain foreign to this land, as the presence of great stability leaves a true journeyman running for his money. Initiative, drive, and ambition also remain limited to the academic study of magic and lore. And while the glorious crystal city of Alinor remains the primary city of Tamriel, it is deeply flawed. That is where we are greeted by one man, one hero who seeks to challenge everything. This man is Ingantalmo Silviar. Born to a declining noble family, but one that remained incredibly wealthy, Ingantalmo never truly appreciated his boring life as a crown prince, but knew that his brother desperately wanted that position. Thus, he made a deal. In exchange for the rights to his throne and that of his noble family, he would receive the overwhelming majority of riches upon his brother's coronation. While his brother believed that he'd be gallivanting around the estate with his riches, Ingantalmo had other plans. Upon the 3rd of last seed 2E440, Ingantalmo willfully exiled himself from his estate, bringing all who were willing to travel with him to a new land. While he explored the entirety of Tamriel, one territory, a small piece of Solstheim, welcomed him with open arms. This land, though typically within a frozen, ash-choked tundra, was surrounded on all sides by gigantic mountains that provided the territory with a layer of insulation and warmth that it would otherwise lack. Here was a piece of fertile farmland capable of growing some basic crops and some glorious mines in the north. This land was very remote within Solstheim, known by the Skald only in myth, and barely settled by the more barbaric Reekling population. That was perfect for Ingantalmo, as he could begin the establishment of a small estate. Although he initially believed that this would be a land where he could establish an isolated wizard's tower and pursue the studies of magic, he was sorely mistaken. Before he could even touch his spellbook, he had to deal with purely political concerns, the exact same concerns that drove him mad back at home. But this time, it was different. rather than ruling over an uncaring populace. All within his estate legitimately wanted to be there and establish Ingantalmo as the ruler. First came the matter of securing this estate. Though he easily could do this by conquering it militarily, he did not wish to face aggression from the local Skal peoples. Though he was seen as an invader by some, he was guaranteed the right to the land simply due to its remoteness and the treacherous nature of traveling in and out. The Skal reasoned that because they, masters of the land and natives to the environment, had a hard time taming this rugged wilderness, Ingantalmo and his crew would find even arriving there to be completely impossible. Their massive underestimate of Ingantalmo's sheer willpower and determination eventually came to be the determining factor in their relationship. While the Skal peoples called this land Solfjord, Ingantalmo cemented his reign by completely renaming the territory after his dead great-grandmother Icaria, though most scholars in the modern day call this land Acaria. There he established a great banner for his estate and noble family, even going as far as to refuse diplomatic contact with nations that called the region by its old name. However, this does not mean he hated the Skal or didn't see wisdom in their teachings. Throughout Acaria, various small villages remained, and under his command, he gave the chieftains of these villages positions within a grand council. With this grand council, he began establishing his command. His first true order was simple: make sure that the land belonged to the settlers. While local villages were allowed to remain, the Acarian Estate would be the homeland of entirely visiting Altmer, and Ingantalmo enforced a strict policy of racial segregation. This policy, though controversial, was not as racial as one may initially believe. First, the Skal, though ostensibly peaceful, could not be allowed to learn the very thing that gave him an immense edge over them. While he intended to teach the Skal how to use magic once his power was secured, he still had to worry about foreign diplomacy and other concerns. Along with this, his uncle was kidnapped by the local Skal commander of the Ghost Fleet, causing him to eternally distrust any within Skal positions. However, that isn't to say that any Skal aren't welcome. The first land he established was the great metropolis of Solfjord, the name reflecting more so his ambition than the actual nature of the land. Within this metropolis, he established a large farmer's market where he sold unique vegetables and even fruit that could grow within this surprisingly warm climate to Skal chieftains. Here, he showed his community that it could and should be definitively welcome to the arrival of foreign peoples. His policy of segregation was a temporary one, and soon he could establish true allies throughout the north. When it comes to magic, he focused ultimately on improving his already great skills, most notably the art of illusion and restoration. His pursuit of illusion magic was fairly obvious, considering that he wanted to keep his land and progress as hidden and remote as possible from the rest of the world. However, when it comes to restoration, there's a much greater reason. Upon a routine trip to a Skal village, he fell in love with one Svana Brynjolfsdottir, the daughter of the chieftain of Felsat, and as he kissed her cheeks one night, he realized something about the races of humanity. While initially an arrogant elven supremacist, Ingantalmo realized that there is something good within all humans. Rather than seeing humans as purely inferior due to their shorter lifespans and worse-off cultures, Ingantalmo began to realize something deeper and far more sinister within humanity. When compared to Mer, the races of men are essentially disabled. They have a shorter lifespan, which reduces their wisdom and capabilities for something greater. Would this not be something that could be cured? After all, there were blind people back in Alinor, and many of them would like to see. However, most humans didn't want anything of the sort. The races of men, though many of their cultures were refined, elegant, and intriguing, had something go terribly wrong in the core of their culture. Rather than recognizing their deficiencies and seeking to overcome them, humans gloated in their prideful ego, even going as far as to worship Lorcan, the very soul who created an infinite cycle of war and bloodshed. That is why Ingantalmo's mission is to have humanity overcome their inherent deficiencies. He seeks to teach the races of men the art of restoration magic, having them overcome the limits of their lifespan and actually growing to become equal to the culture of elves. This isn't a paternalistic ideal, but instead one born out of compassion for a race that has been lied to for its very existence, not only to accept deficiencies that could be cured with hard work, but to accept a cyclical nature of the universe that could be broken out of. This attitude outlasted his love for Svanna after finding out she found solace in someone else. But his sad realization also gave him more of an ideal on how to rule. While Ingantalmo remained an autocrat, he became increasingly libertarian in his approach. He does not intend to force humanity to follow his ambition, but rather give the race of men the opportunity of enlightenment. Within his land, one could find the ultimate frontier and be free to do whatever he wants. Instead of taxing his populace, for example, one would be asked politely to give only what he could to the estate. As everyone was invested in its prosperity, this project worked, and Ingantalmo could focus on developing Acaria and making it the greatest estate he possibly could. However, that story is for a different day. Until then, be an artist, not a nerd, and don't forget, the Lord is the divine source of creation. He who is greater than all is greater than all, the honored, blessed, and great, most powerful, most beautiful, most knowing, most wise, and most loving. Amen.